Right, it's good to be back, guys. We're here with another Brew Day video, and this one is a bit special because it is a review and grain to glass video for this mash kit that I have been very kindly provided by the Homebrew outlet. I'll put a link to them down in the description below. As part of this video, you will also be able to get a 10% discount from them. You'll have to stick around to the end to get the discount code for that. But I've been sent this kit basically for free. So Paul from Homebrew Outlet approached me and asked me if I wanted to do a review on one of their kits, and I said yes, absolutely. And this is it. So this particular one is a clone recipe kit for Track Brewing's Tuya or Tuya table beer. So it's a 3%, or it should come out as a 3% session table beer, whatever you want to call it. Some of you will know that I'm a big fan of Track Brewing already. If you're listening to the podcast and stuff, you'll have heard me do quite a few reviews of their beers on there for the commercial break beers and that sort of thing. So I'm really looking forward to this. And yeah, we'll go through the kit itself, how the brew day goes, and obviously do a tasting at the end. So let's get on to it. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about my first impressions of the kit and what's actually in it, first of all, before we get started with the actual brewing. Before you even open it, I mean, look at the packaging. It comes in a brew bucket or fermentation bucket, so if you wanted to, you can obviously reuse that for that purpose. I've got plenty of fermenters already, but, you know, an extra bucket is never going to go amiss, so I'll probably use that just for kind of grinding grain into or something like that. But either way, you know, you're getting a free bucket out of it straight away, which is a good starting point. Now, this particular kit, I should mention, is actually done in collaboration with the brewery itself. So Track Brewing have provided the recipe and collaborated with the Homebrew outlet on this. Part of that deal is that it's to help generate a bit of income for obviously the brewery itself, but also for the NHS Altogether charity. I think is it Altogether? I don't know. I'll check that, but there'll be a link to that at the bottom anyway. So part of the proceeds from these kits goes towards the NHS charities, and I will be making a donation to that because obviously I got this kit for free and I don't want them to lose out on any money because of that. And if you want to make a donation too, go and check out the link at the bottom. You can do so. So anyway, on to the kit itself. Inside, we've got some instructions and yeast in that package there. We've got lots of hops in this kit. It really is, especially for a 3% beer, a hoppy number. So it's a bit dusty as well. Now, I did mention to Paul about the fact that it might be better if these are actually packaged up in a plastic bag, like a single plastic bag for all the hops and instructions and stuff. And he said, yeah, that's actually what they normally do, but for some reason this kit was sent out without the extra plastic bag. So it is a bit dusty. That's a very minor complaint, but anyway, rest assured, apparently they don't normally come out with all the bits just sat in the grain. So we've got some Columbus. That big bag there was Citra and Mosaic. And what have we got in here? More Citra and Mosaic. So there's about 200 grams in total of each hop, Citra and Mosaic, a big Whirlpool edition, and a big dry hop of those two hops. So it's Citra and Mosaic beer. I won't go through the full recipe on this because, well, these guys have basically provided, Track have provided the Homebrew outlet with this recipe. It's not published on the website either, although a lot of the other kit recipes, they are actually published on the website, so you can go and look at those yourself. But this one isn't, so I don't want to share this openly at the moment, because obviously it's, you know, the brewery have given it to them for the purpose of selling this kit, essentially. And then in the bucket, obviously we've got the pre-crushed grains in there. There's a good mixture of different stuff in this. I can already see, before I look at the recipe, that we've got some oats and flaked barley and a few different things going on in there. So quite a complex grain bill. The yeast in here is the kind of generic kit yeast that you will see in kit beers. It's 2 packets of 6 gram yeast. Now I did just question that with Paul from the Homebrew outlet and say, you know, is this the only yeast option that there is? Could you maybe put an option on the website to choose different yeast? He sort of basically told me that this is essentially equivalent to SO4, and it's what the brewery had asked them to put into the kit. Now, Track Brewing do brew with London Ale free pretty much for everything, as far as I'm aware. SO4 is a perfectly decent sort of dry yeast substitute for that, but I do happen to have a packet of Imperial Juice, which is the same strain, so that is London Ale free as well. And I'm going to sub that out for the dry yeast in this case, but it's no no downer on the kit itself that it's got this SO4 equivalent in it, because that would be a perfectly decent yeast to use in its stead. The instructions on this are really good. Loads of detail there. It's even got suggested water profile, full details of kind of mash and everything. Obviously grain bill, hop additions, so you do get the full recipe yourself. I know that a lot of other companies do not actually provide you with the full recipe for mash kits. So, you know, that allows you obviously to plug everything into your software, and if you want to make any adjustments, it's a lot easier as well. It's a 23 litre kit, so you get plenty of beer here. ABV, as I said, 3%, 6 EBC, so very light, 33 IBUs, should be an OG of 1035 and an FG of 1012. More on that in a minute, because there's some really interesting processes involved in this kit, which are a bit different to normal, that are used to try and push that FG a bit higher. So one of those is the fact that it's using a 30-minute mash, so shortening the mash time can help to, I believe, keep some of those sort of sugars more complex. They're not breaking them down fully into the shorter chain sugars, and that will make it harder for the yeast to process them and basically end up with more dextrins left in the beer. I think all that terminology was right. The other thing is it's mashing at 74 degrees. Now I did read that and think, that sounds a little bit on the higher side. Is that right? But looking into it a bit further, my initial thought was surely you're getting towards the point where you're actually going to kill off the enzymes or denature the enzymes at that point. But apparently, reading into it a bit further, you've actually got a much higher range of temperature that you can go for with your mash temp before that becomes a problem. So the enzymes that are active at the higher temperatures are actually have a window that goes right up into the 70s, and it's more up towards 80 degrees where you start to get a problem with the enzymes being killed off completely. So although it's definitely a lot higher than you would typically look at, apparently that is perfectly okay to mash at 74 degrees. But obviously it's going to push your final gravity up. So 30-minute mash, very high mash temperature. That's going to help us to keep the FG quite high. And as far as the instructions go, I'm really impressed. Love the fact that there's a suggested water profile in there. So if you're into your sort of water treatment and the more advanced side of that, you've got suggestions for what to do with that. In this case, it's a sort of 3-to-1 sulfate to chloride ratio. All the other numbers are pretty standard. I would have potentially, if I was going to choose the profile myself, maybe have gone the other way and gone for a high chloride ratio, because that can help to increase the mouthfeel as well. But I guess in this case, with such a high FG, maybe they're just relying on the mashing technique to keep that. So it goes through the full process all the way into fermentation and how long to dry hop for, all the rest of it. So can't really knock the instructions at all. Kit looks very good, well packaged, bit messy getting all the stuff out, but as I mentioned, obviously that's supposed to be packaged in a separate plastic bag. And when I plug all of that into Brewfather, it does match up pretty well to the numbers that I've got on here. My OG came out a little bit higher, but that could be just down to the efficiency. So perhaps the efficiency on this is based on around 70%, which I wouldn't be surprised at as a sort of starting point for a mash kit beer. My FG is calculated as coming out a bit higher as well, so 1017. But that might be partly because my OG is higher anyway. And obviously that means with the same attenuation, you should end up in the same place. The upshot of it is it's saying that I should get about 3% or 2.9% ABV, so it's in the ballpark. IBUs are slightly different as well, but I don't know what the alpha acids on these hops are, so the the numbers in my inventory might be slightly different to what I've actually been provided with here, but it's only a few IBU points, so it's not anything to be worrying about at all. Right, so yeah, overall first impressions, very good. I think it looks like a really good quality kit, great instructions. Value wise, I think this is selling at 27 quid on the website. Now, bearing in mind you've got 200 grams each of Citra and Mosaic in this kit, you've almost recovered your cost there just on the hops before you even start looking at yeast, grains, and the free bucket that you get with it as well. So on that front, I think it's really good value too. And like I said, some of the money goes towards charity, so everyone's a winner. Right, let's start brewing, because I've been nattering on for far too long, and I want to see some brew footage. Let's go.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys. It sound right, boys. Sound right, boys. It sound right, boy.
So there we have the finished product. That is the Tuya table beer Track Brewing recipe, courtesy of the Homebrew outlet. So thanks again to those guys for sending me the kit and giving me the opportunity to review it. And yeah, the finished beer is not looking too bad in the glass, I must say. Now, before we get into doing the tasting and everything else, just want to talk about the brewing process and a few more bits of feedback that I got based on that. So first of all, I will raise my one little kind of gripe or bit of negative feedback, I guess, with this one, which was the use of leaf hops in the kit. I didn't realise at first when I unboxed it that they were leaf hops. I probably should have done based on the size of the packets, but anyway, once I opened it up doing the actual brew, obviously leaf hops, and was a bit surprised because the quantity of hops in this recipe, you wouldn't normally expect to see leaf hops in there. For me, and probably for a lot of other people, because of the way that they expand while you're brewing, whether it be in the kettle or in the dry hop, leaf hops are maybe not the best option. Pellet hops would perhaps be better. I did send some feedback to Paul basically saying for me that would be the case, and it would be good to either have the option to choose pellet or leaf for the kit, or at least in this case, particularly with the beers that have a very high quantity of hops in them, just to go with pellets, because as you may have seen in the video, it does create a little bit of an issue in terms of the physical size of hops when they expand and so on. For the dry hop particularly, I had to use 2 bags and they were weighted down, but I don't feel like all of the hops got fully kind of submerged and utilized as much as they could have, because of the space that they take up basically when they expand. Anyway, that was my only kind of real issue to raise, and for a lot of people leaf hops are perfectly fine. So each their own, and I gave feedback on that, which was what I was asked to do. So I'm trying to be as honest with the review as I can, and hopefully that shows that is happening. So the proof is in the drinking though, and despite me cocking up many things on the brew day, because it was my first brew back in the new house after several months of not brewing at all, and I'd liken it to kind of cooking in somebody else's kitchen for the first time. I didn't know where anything was. I was tripping over shit all over the place. It was a surprise that I actually made it through and didn't completely wreck the beer, to be honest. But the main upshot of that was that I missed some of my numbers and my efficiency was terrible, even though on a really low kind of ABV or OG beer like this, normally I would expect to see a bit of a boost in efficiency because of the extra sparge water and all of that kind of stuff that you're using. In this case, I fucked a few things up essentially, and it didn't quite go to plan. So I missed a few numbers, but in the end I made some adjustments right at the end and just brought everything up into the kind of spec of the original recipe. So it should have come out at 3%, but I also didn't account for the liquid yeast that I subbed in maybe being a little bit less attenuative than the SO4 would have been. So it ended up at 2.6%, which isn't a bad thing necessarily at all for a table beer, because you're kind of aiming to get something that's as low ABV and sessionable as possible. But in this case, had I mashed slightly lower, I think I would have actually hit the target ABV of 3% better. I didn't even get the actual intended mash temperature anyway, so I was a little bit below that at about 70 or 73, I think. But if I dropped it to say 71, 72, I think I'd probably have been more on target in terms of the FG as well. Anywho, so that stuff aside, the beer still came out pretty well despite the best efforts of myself to cock it up during the brew day. And in the glass, as I said, it does look pretty decent. So we've still got a little bit of head hanging around on the top there, despite me nattering away for ages. It's pretty hazy, as you can see, although based on the amount of hops and the gravity samples that I was taking along the way, I would have expected it to be a lot murkier than this actually. So it's kind of certainly not clear, but it's somewhere in between the sort of level of murk that I was expecting and I guess clearing down fully. You can kind of see a bit of lacing on the glass happening already as well. So with the amount of oats and flaked barley and other adjuncts that were in there, I guess that's to be expected. So the grain bill has certainly helped in that respect. And looks like a pretty attractive pint in the glass. On the aroma, I get a lot of sort of lemony, limey, citrus, squash kind of aromas at first. So it's definitely got that, and then some softer kind of tropical fruit, soft fruit. I keep thinking squash when I'm smelling the aroma on this one. So it's got that kind of like, I don't know, high juice kind of aroma to it. Very pleasant. There's a little bit of sweetness there, but not a huge amount of malt on the nose, which isn't surprising for such a pale beer. But yeah, it smells good. So tasting time. Now, first thing, for a 2.6% beer, the danger is you would expect it to be quite watery and thin. It's not the case at all with this. It's definitely got a good amount of body to it. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a very light beer. It's got quite a light, frothy kind of mouthfeel to it, but in a good way. But it's definitely not thin or watery at all. There is some body to it. There's a good kick of bitterness there as well, which actually kind of, to be honest, putting aside the fact that it's a 2.6% beer, this would stand up pretty well just as a typical pale ale for me. If you weren't aware of the strength of this and the OG and everything else, I think this could pass as a, sort of 4% plus standard American pale ale, which is, I suppose, props to the recipe really, because it certainly drinks a lot stronger than it actually is. Now, yeah, body mouthfeel is definitely a lot bigger and fuller than I was expecting. The hop flavour is there as well, so you've got, like I said, there is a decent kick of bitterness, and then you've got this kind of lemony, limey thing coming in from the Citra and the Mosaic. There's slightly danker, overripe tropical fruit coming in afterwards as well. I get a little bit of kind of lychee, maybe a hint of grapey flavour there as well. Overall, it's really, really good. I'm very happy with that. I'm very happy with the fact that I got sent the kit for free. And yeah, thank you very much to the Homebrew outlet, and thank you very much for watching. And now that you've got this far, if you want a 10% discount on the kits or anything else at the Homebrew outlet, then you need to use the code DudesBrews. I'll put it up on the screen, and basically enter that at checkout, which will give you 10% off. And based on this, yeah, the kits are definitely worth a look. I'm really impressed with it. A couple of minor issues there that I've given feedback on, but overall, an excellent beer as a result. So great recipe, really cool to collaborating with the breweries and also supporting charitable causes as well. And there's a whole range of different beers on there as well, and obviously loads of other brewing gear and stuff, as you would expect from a company that's backed up by Brupaks, who are pretty well established in the home brewing scene. So go and check them out, and happy brewing. Cheers, guys.
I'm the dude, so that's what you call me, that or his dudeness, or duder, or El Duderino, if you're not into the whole brevity thing.